We will just be waiting for the last participants to join us. So we will start shortly. A little more patience. We can see they're coming in. Hi, I think we all gather now. So I will invite you all to what is our second episode of this trilogy of automated sectioning. We'll be talking how automated solution like the AS410 behind me has actually helped high throughput labs, not only in terms of quality, but in terms of turnaround time, ergonomics, and how to implement a workflow that is suitable for the future. So I will now go through the agenda. We will have a short presentation of the AS for those who doesn't know the AS. Then I will introduce you to Nadia, who is our key speaker of the day. She's from Odense University Hospital, and she will take us on this road how to implement such an advanced system in Odense. And then we will have a Q&A session. And I just want to make you aware that you're actually in the top bar of your screen, you're able to state your questions in the Q&A segment. So just by tapping that, you can state your questions. If you going through Q&A, it will be anonymous, so we cannot see who you actually are when you're stating your questions. You can also state it through the chat channel, but in that case, we will be able to see who is actually stating the questions. So my name is Emily Unning. I'm an application manager, and I will now take you through the system when the block is being sectioned. So we're starting at the load unit, and the load unit having a max capacity of 96 blocks. Blocks are being loaded on a tray like this, where we are having a barcode. From the barcode, you can actually extract any information that is possible and will be required to do sections. So that could be patient name, that could be sample ID, that could be section thickness and slide type, and how many sections you actually is requiring for that block. So all information are listed within the barcode. Then we are placing the trays inside this load unit. And then we are loading the whole thing. We have cheated a little, so we have already been placing a tray here. So the sample truck will grip on each block, placing it here, do a scanning of the barcode that will be listed on the screen with the information from the limbs. Then the block will go over to the block holder, and then it will go for nivellation. So nivellation in terms of tilt and in terms of height. After that, it will measure the temperature, making sure it's the right temperature to do the sections. And then it will go for sectioning. And the sectioning are pretty aligned from the beginning due to the nivellation sensors. We have vacuum system that will suction any debris that is caused by doing polishing that is build up alignment to the blade. Sections will come on the carrier tape, and then a slide will be pushed out. And then there will be added some mount medium, which is also purified water. This will work as a water bath if we are comparing this process to manual sectioning. Then there will be a slide print, and then it will go for transfer of the sectioning over here. After transferring this sectioning to the slide, it will come back in this area for extension. and for validation of the barcode, making sure that it actually will correspond with what is on the block. And then it will go for image capture for QC. And if we take a look at the screen here, we can actually see this is a blade mark picture capturing on one of the sections. After extension, it will go to the dry chamber that is heated, and here will go for storage until unloading. And here you have sections coming out. So this is actually the process the block is going through inside this system. And now I want to introduce you all Nadia Nielsen from Odense. And you will take us through your journey with how you implemented such an advanced system in Odense Hospital.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for ACTA to invite me to hold this speech today about the AS. As Amalie said, I'm a lead laboratory technologist from Odense, which is a university hospital. I just want to talk to you about some difference about the AS and what it can do, and a little bit about our journey. As you can see, I have a short presentation of our department, so you can compare it to yours, and some statistics of how many blocks we have per year. Then I have a lot about the different qualification there is on the system. Then I will talk a little bit about workflow in our lab mainly, but also just for you to think about how you can do your workflow. And then at the end, I will have a little bit about why we implemented the AS410M. So some of the arguments why we could get the first instrument that we got. So for the first, this is a little slide about our department of pathology. As you can see, we hold different specialties. Of course, the main will be histology, where I work, but we also have cytology, molecular pathology, cytogenetics, and flow symmetry. It's a smaller department in the department, so histology is our main thing. Again, just for you to compare, so you can see the size and how many employees we have in the whole department. And again, just to show how many technologists we have in the histology, so you could compare to your own department. And for the last, I will just tell you that we are full digital on histology samples, and we have been so since 2021. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the AS410M system has a big impact on how we could get digital in a very short time. So it's just something to remember. As I said, just a little statistics about our department. The main thing I think we should have a focus on is how many blocks we have per year. I just took some numbers from the last 3 years, so you can see that the block number is pretty stable over the last couple of years. So actually we have the same amount of work that we do every year. Of course, there will be something who has noticed that immunostains is quite high, and I think that is something will just be increasing. But our blocks is pretty stable for now. So back to the AS system. Just a short presentation on how we have it on our department. We got the first instrument in 2018, and we quite rapidly could implement it. And quite quickly, we got so excited that we could get a second instrument in 2020. Both of our instruments have the same settings. You can have different settings, but we have the same settings on it. It's quite common, I think, that if you have more systems, you have different settings on it. Both our instruments are run on the same protocol for all samples. Again, you can choose to have different protocols for different samples, but we chose to have the same protocol for all our samples, so we didn't have to sort any of our samples. In our department, we have operating time for about 10 hours a day. And in addition to that, we also do a night run on both of our instruments. We do only section in online mode. You can also section in offline mode, but I think the most people that will use that is if they don't have an integration with an LIS system. Sorry. We have chosen to have a small group of laboratory technologists to handle the instrument. Right now we have 10 technicians that is trained to use the instrument, and then we have 2 specialists. And the specialist is more for troubleshooting and if there is some errors or something like that. We have the philosophy of run all specimens that are not biopsy on our instruments. So that is just the quick look on our department and how we run it. Here is some production numbers from start to now. I don't have the latest number for this year, but the reason why 18 isn't with us here is because the first instrument was just implemented in December, so we didn't have so many numbers for that. So that's the reason why you only can see for 19. As you can see, there is a development on how much we have run through the system, and there is some different reasons for that. The first line is how many blocks there is being cut on the AS system, and the second line is how many blocks we have in total on our department. And of course, the percentage rate is how many of the blocks is cut on the AS system. Under the comment is just to show what the difference is and maybe why we are increasing on how many blocks we have run on the system. The first is quite obvious. It's because we only had one system and therefore we couldn't run as many blocks and as when we got the second one installed. Then again, you can see from 20 to 21, there is again a big increase in the block amount that we had run on the system. And it's because we own that the instrument number 2 was installed in mid-year. So a lot of the year we only had one instrument. 21 and 22 is quite similar, and it's because there wasn't any big changes on the instrument, and in that way I think we were quite stable in our production. But that you can see in 23 we had the increase again in a percentage, and it's because the skip mode got available from the producers of the instrument, and before we had that available, we had to scan all of blocks twice. And that thing that we had to scan all the blocks twice means that when we started a full load example, we were using 20 minutes of our time for scanning blocks instead of just starts the cutting right away. So that time is now being reduced, and now we can cut even more. So back to some of the qualifications on the instrument, and I will like to apologize from start. There is a lot, but it's because I think there is a really many good qualification on the systems. So maybe it's a little heavy to get through, but I hope you will bear with me. Some of the first things I think that is really important with the system is the integration with the LIS system. We use it only with the integration with the LIS system, and some of the good things about it is that we can track the slides, when has it been sectioned, what part of time of day and on which instruments it has been sectioned. If you need a slide who has been lost or something like that, you can look up in your LIS system and see, okay, it has been sectioned on the AS system. When you have the integration, also you can see here on the picture the print from the slide from the system. Here you can see what kind of stains you have to stain the slide, what priority it has, and the case number. Again, you can also see, as the example here, it's sample number 1, block number 1, and then it's slide number 1. If you have multiple slides, then your number will change. So you can get all the information you want from it. The sample type is in our laboratory put that way that the sample type decides which thickness the section should have. So it varies of what section, what type of specimens you have in our department, and we go from 4 to around 8 microtons. Then we have multiple slides in different levels. Is one of the things the instrument also can. For us, we, for the most part, are only producing 1 slide per block, but sometimes you will have an H&E, but maybe also a special stain or something, and that will be done also in this system. In the previous year, we had actually run different levels also, and when you are running different levels, it will take more time than if you just had one level who should have an H&E staining. So maybe that's also one of the reasons why our production has increased over the years. Then a really good thing about this instrument is that it takes out the possibility of exchanging patients' material. And it's a high security for our laboratory that we can make that mistake. That mistake is very easy to do when you are handling it manually. You maybe get the wrong slide on the wrong section on the wrong slide or something like that. But because this system only section 1 block at a time, and you have the printer who has read and the scanner who has read all the information from the LIS system, you don't have that possibility of exchanging materials. So really good for your security. Then a thing I think we have seen in our laboratory is the consistency of quality. Because of that the system is so standardized, it has the same temperature all the time, and it places the section on the same spot on the slide every time. You can see that the quality has improved in our laboratory. And especially when you compare it to the manual section. And I actually have some pictures of that. Here is a very good example, I think. The left slide is a manual section, and the right slide is from the automated section. And you can actually see that this is some hard tissue. It has been very difficult to section manually. And it's just here where you see this good quality of the automated section. Again here, just to show you another picture of how it can look. You can see there is some folds on the left slide when you compare it to the right slide. Yes, just a little break for some water. Again, as I said, it's a little heavy on all the qualifications, but the machine can do so many things. So another thing is the opportunity to optimize on different parameters to different types of specimens. You can optimize if you have fatty specimens or hard tissues, skins, something like that. As I said in the beginning, we are only running on one protocol, but we are looking into making different protocols to different types of specimens. And again, it's because the quality is so important, especially when you are fully digitalized. So if we are doing different protocols for fatty tissue or hard tissue, maybe our quality will improve even more than it already has. Then it can do sections of control material. We are not doing it in our department for this moment right now, and the only reason we are not doing it is because of the capacity of the instrument. We only have 2 instruments, and that capacity that we have are fully loaded with routine samples. But if we had more capacity, we will also do control material for immunostainings or something like that. And the important part of that is that, again, you have the same standardized section every time, and the quality, so it's easier to do your QC when you are doing the check of your immunostainings. A thing that I'm really glad about with this instrument is also the user-friendly interface with it. It's really easy to load and unload. It's easy to change the utility of it. As you can see in the picture, it's quite intuitive. You just have to push what button you see, and then the instrument will tell you what to do. So it's easy to train new technologists to use the instrument. You don't have to have 10, 15 years of experience to use this instrument. You could do it as a almost brand new technologist. You just push the button. Exactly, if you have to change the blade, push change, and then you can change the blade. In our laboratory, we are sectioning both manually and automated embedded paraffin blocks. For the most, it's actually automated embedded blocks that we are sectioning. Around 70% of our blocks is automated embedded. And the reason why it makes a difference is because of the automated embedded can have some problems with the plastic there is in these nets. Especially when you're doing it manually, you can see it can be harder to section, but it's not a problem on the system. And it was some of those things we were a little worried about in the start, but we have seen it's not a problem with the system. Again, I think I have said it, but the system has been a key factor for our implementation of digital pathology. And the reason why I'm saying this is we had thought that we should spend years trying to implement digital pathology. But actually, because we had that standardized slide, we had a high quality of our sectioning, it only took a few months to be fully implemented on the digital pathology. So back to a little bit about our workflow in our laboratory. And it's just to show how you can manage to get a high output for your laboratory and how many times of technologists you have to use. So we are having one technologist to work on the instrument through the day. That technologist will do all the maintenance. In the morning, they do a big maintenance of the instrument, and then there will be some small maintenance when you do your runs. They will do the loading and unloading, check of blocks, check of slides. Is the slide quality like we wanted? Is there something for retry, etc.? The technologists will also overview and planning the different runs. We try really hard to optimize the time because we want to have so high an output as possible. So every run is planned down to the last minute, I will say. So when a run is over, there is already the next run is ready. So you just have to load, unload, unload, and load. So you don't have that time gap in between. And again, it's just a focus on has as little downtime as possible. In our laboratory, we do runs with 2 to 3 trays at a time on a run. And the reason why we don't do a full run all the time, because someone will say, just load it full and then you could walk away for 3 hours. But then your slides will be in the machine for those 3 hours. And we would like to have it further through the process, down to staining and the scanners. So it's just to have the slides out in reasonable time. But that said, in night we do a full run, and it's because we are not in the laboratory anyways, so we can fill the machines up, and then it will be done when we come in at the morning. We also use 2 technologists to trim all the blocks before it goes into the system. The machine actually can do it, but it takes a long time for the instruments to do this trimming. And we did some calculation on it in the start of this process with the instrument. And we could just see that we will save time by using 2 technologists to trim the blocks. We are running on every block that only has 1 level on it, and it will typically just be an H&E staining. And again, sometimes maybe a special staining. So we try to put everything on it, and then we hope the quality is the best that it can be. And maybe sometimes there will be some really hard tissue or something like that who has to go for manual. Again, just a slide to see the workflow in a different way and to see how many technologies it takes in our laboratory to get the block or the slide from A to the end also the pathologist. So from us, we start with the processed blocks. So when the tissues have been processed in the morning, then it will go for embedding. And again, the most of us is automatic. Then we have two technologists who is preparing the block by trimming, and it's actually the same technologist who is handling all the automated embedding. So you can use the same technologist for different tasks. Then there will be the sectioning, and it's one technologist who is handling that all through the day, but it's the same technologist who is also putting the done sections to the cover stainer. We use the Darbo cover stainer. So you don't have another technologist coming in to do that. Then we have the scanning, and again, we use one technologist, and it's the same technologist who is unloading the staining, the slides from the staining, and they will also do the QC of the scanning, and then could send the case to the pathologist. So in a perfect world where everything runs as it should, with no time gaps or anything, no layback, we could get the sections from it's processed in the morning to the pathologist in 5 to 6 hours. But again, I would like to say it's in the perfect world, and it will be the first blocks that we handle. Of course, when we get longer on the day where the blocks may be already processed in the morning, but it's the last on the AS, it will take longer time. Yes, just a little about the arguments we had for investing in the AS back in the days. As you can say, it's quite some years now. But the main reason was lack of staff. We couldn't get enough technologists to do the manual sectioning of the slides. So to increase a baseline where we could always rely on example 300 blocks to be sectioned. And again, it takes me down to the second point, problems to get the production done. And I think it's varies all over the world. It's a problem to get the production done. We calculate around 1,000 to 1,200 blocks per day. And before we got the AS, it could vary if we got 200 blocks done or we got 1,200 blocks done. And it's because we were having sickness or vacation or anything like that. We also wish to again have that baseline where we could ensure that we had the same production every day, or at least a baseline of 600 blocks or what it could be. And then again, we would like to improve our quality, because when we had seen what the AS system could do, we could see it the quality of our section was improved. And we know that we should get fully digital in a couple of years. So just to increase that quality was a big factor for us. And then a part I don't think we talk enough about is the heavily workload on the technologist. It's very, very hard to section every day on a manual microtome. And we could get sickness days because it has been too hard on the shoulders or anything. So also to keep our technologists for longer years and delay of their work life and all that. So to get an improvement on that. Here is just some statistics of production on the AS, and it's just to show you on the graph how it will look like when you are looking on the manual cuts. You can see it varies a lot, and again, it's because there is sickness and vacation, all of that. So we could never know how many blocks we will get through to the pathology state. But if you are looking on the blue line, you can see that baseline that is more stable, and that's how many blocks the AS could section for us. And it got our workload a lot more stable, and it were a big part of. We could always, we didn't have any pathologists to go, when do I get this block and where did that? Because they always have something to do. When we only cut manual, maybe sometimes there will be 10 pathologists looking, where are my cases, or something like that. So it was really good to have that baseline to rely on. Yeah. And actually, I think that was
it for you. Thank you so much, Nadia, for inviting your journey. It was very interesting. I think a lot of the topics were very valid and something I might see other facilities are going through. Lack of staff, need to improve quality, prepare, labs for the future. So thank you a lot.
Of course.
I now want to draw your attention that we do have a Q&A session. Just a reminder, so please, if you want to say your question, go in the top bar, do the Q&A, state your question. You can also go through the snap to do that. So I think we already have the first question through. So if you're ready.
Yes, let's hear it.
Can you run multiple protocols at the same time?
Actually, I think you can. We are not, it's quite funny because we are not doing it in our lab, but I know that has been an upgrade to the system, so you can do it.
Yeah, so with of course, the support within the LIMS provider, you're actually able to do more parameters with a different setup of how many blocks you actually require from those blocks. That could actually be something that the LIMS could support and do now. So you don't have to split your cases, split your blocks to do, special parameters for each.
Yeah, that's a really good thing.
Yeah. Do we have the next question, please? How many service-related calls do you have per year?
Oh, of course, that varies. We actually, there is some PM as a permanent service that is always calculated in the service call. But I think it's hard to say. Maybe something about 5 to 10 times a year on 2 systems, I would like to say. So, but it's we have a high amount of blocks that we are putting through, and I think the higher that amount is, the more issues there can be with the instrument, and there is more things
needs to be changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure. But I also think we need to mention that you're actually is one of the facilities who are having that monthly checkup.
Exactly.
Because you're running that much, you're also running Saturdays also sometimes.
Yeah.
So you actually, to prevent breakage or downtime, you're adding on more technical support just to prevent.
Yeah. And it's because of course it's easier to know that you have service than if there is a breakdown, and maybe you can just you can first get service in the day after, or maybe 2 days after. So for us it's better to know we have some scheduled service done.
Exactly, but of course it comes with the throughput. The more you wear, the more you tear, the more you need to. So that goes hand in hand.
That's the reason why we did that, because we could see, okay, we are using the instrument.
You're pushing it.
Yeah. Pushing to the end.
Yeah. Another question. How you used DAS to section decalcified bone?
We actually have. Sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it doesn't. It depends on is the calcification done all right, as it has enough. But sometimes we can see that the instrument can do it better than a manual laboratory technologist could do. So we try it on the instrument, and sometimes we have to realize, okay, this has to go back to manual cutting. But we do.
So it's actually a conflict between looking at the one coming from the AS and thinking, could I even do this better myself?
Exactly.
And maybe in most cases you won't be able to. So that's the balance between.
Yeah, and the time consumable of it also, because when you have difficult blocks to cut manually, you also use a lot more time to section.
Yeah. Next question, please. How many different list systems is the AS currently valid on? Is it compatible with EPIC breaker of intent? So I think we're up to 4 or 5 different platforms. Maybe I have to say that in Denmark, we are all using the same list, which makes it very easy. But of course, on an international base, we will have different LIMS provider, and we know that. What I can say on that matter is we haven't encountered a list provider we couldn't link up to, so that's the positive. Of course, how much is that LIMS actually supporting the features within the AS is always a discussion, but for the most part, we haven't had any issues. Next question. Is it possible to add the patient's name on the slide? It is.
Thank you.
It is. I'll say in Denmark it's a conflict because we will not do it.
No, never.
But it is actually possible. We do have sites around the world that will actually state the patient name. So if that is a wish, we could actually do that for you. Next question.
And I can say in Denmark, we everywhere in Denmark we only use the case number, so you don't have
the requisition number to enclose that patient to not
exactly.
be exposed to. Yeah, but I have also seen maybe also the name of the pathologist.
Oh, okay.
So you actually know where to, divide
so
the
you
case.
don't have to look it up.
Yeah.
That was also.
But again, that's a balance. Do we want that or do we don't want
Yeah.
it? Next question. If we have one. Yeah, we do. Can the system recognize the tissue type when reading the cassette barcode and adjust the cutting protocol to match the tissue type?
I will say yes, because it's only a matter of how you have feeded the LIS system with the integration of the AS, and we are using that. So the system knows when it's that kind of code there is on it. It can read exactly what kind of stains it should and what protocol it should take.
So usually when a specimen is coming in, it's been born with a requisition number and a tissue
sample,
and that will linger to a different staining that could be linked to a different staining type that could link it to a different protocol. So it's link on link on link on link that eventually can divide. If I'm reading this barcode, I know which parameter to use. And this is what I have, maybe also have pushed you a little bit, because I know you're doing one parameter. But if we take that parallel to doing manual sectioning, we will never treat the specimens the same. We have our different tips and tricks how to do tissues. They're hard, dense, soft. And to have that knowledge to feed this system to operate on different parameters, especially also bone, lower cut speed, and so on, that could increase the quality. And in my opinion, I think it could.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important part to have in your mind, because I think we should look in our quality of our section all the time. We have to push to the best quality available, and of course, I think we will go there in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Next question, please. How do you ensure it doesn't cut through a small specimen?
It's of course what parameters you have set for it, how much you want it to polish, and then there will be a lot reliable on the technologist who is trimming the blocks. So they have to look at it and say, okay, this block I only have to trim a little because I know the machine will take 50 or 100 microns to polish. So we look at it where the technologist should use their knowledge to see, okay, it's a small specimen, I don't have to trim it that much.
So what it does is it has this polishing feature to align block and blade, and this is a must. It can be increased or decreased depending on the tissue surface, the block surface in general. But what Nadia is telling is when you're trimming, you're already selecting, would this actually fit the system or would this be too critical? Of course, if we're on a barrel having minimal material, you will not place it. But the alignment micrometer inside is so small, 80 micrometers is not that much. Of course, if you have minimal material, again, you will not place them on the system. But otherwise, I think you have, in the most cases, without it saying anything will be.
Yeah, we will try.
Yeah.
We put it back to the technologist and just all that they have been learned in their training, and they know, okay, I have to be careful with that.
Yeah, exactly. Do we have a next question? Yeah. How do you establish the amount of trim that needs to be cut before you know you have a good full section?
Oh, it's actually quite the same as we talked about before, because the main thing is that the technologist who is trimming the block has to be very close to where they want the section to be done, because we have a minimal of polish in our system. Of course, you can increase that if you want a lot of it, but by having a minimal and the technologist have trimmed exactly to where the section should be done, you don't have that thing to worry about, you can say, because the technologist with their knowledge already seeing, okay, it has to be here, then the section will be done, and then the quality will improve by sitting on the AS system.
And maybe also to mention that you're embedding with the AutoTech inserts. So when you're placing from grossing your tissue, it will usually it will be aligned.
Yes.
So when you have it inside your trimming, you will already know it's usually in between 200 or 500 micrometer, depending of course on the tissue. But that leaves, you know, a uniformity in your trimming.
Yeah, it's very standardized actually, because we use so much automated embedding. And of course, we are also taking our time to train a pathologist when they are in the grossing section to layer the tissue right in those paragons. So yeah, it starts from the start, you can say.
And I just had a question. What would you do if you for some reason saw that the tissue were not aligned from the embedding? Would you then trim to a certain point, or would you then go for, you know, had it re-embedded?
I think for the most part we will have it re-embedded, because then we could make sure. But it's always a thing you have to think about: is it time consuming doing the one thing of them? But again, then there also is that amount. You can just trim down to nothing. You have to have an amount before the AS can take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a lower limit.
Yeah, exactly. So for the most part, I think we will re-embed it.
Okay. Do we have a next question? How long does maintenance take?
Oh, actually not that long. I think it varies, of course, on how long the technologist has been on the instrument, if it's a trainee or something like that. But we use for 2 instruments around half an hour in the morning, and then there will be a little maintenance between the ones where we just are doing is everything as it should be. Is there some leftover paraffin or something like that? We just have to remove. But in the morning, where we're doing the main maintenance, we are for 2 instruments using like 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
So
that's taking the complexity of the system into consideration. That is actually fairly okay.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. And what you will be checking is, of course, is there any debris in the sensors that will cause any issue?
Yeah, and we try to keep the instrument very, very clean also through the day, because it's one of the first things that we learn about the instrument. Is there anything messy in there? There is more risk that there will be problems later on. So we try to keep it very, very clean.
Very clean. Yeah. Do we have a question? How well does it handle hydration of dry tissue? So I guess this is a question from the US. Because we in Denmark, we don't have that termination of having dry tissue. No. But what I can say is the system is feeding with a humidifier. So it will blow mist onto the surface of the section. And in that case, it will hydrate the section before it lingers onto the carrier tape. This is also something we saw in Japan, but it's not something we're not using it here in Denmark. New terminology. Do we have another question? Can you run 3 samples that require 3 levels?
Yes, you can do that. The only thing there is, and the reason why we are not doing it, it's because you have to have the different levels on different slides. So you use more consumables on slides. And for us that are fully digital, it will be more slides that we have to scan. So we are putting on more scanning time. And that's the main reason we are not doing different levels. But I don't know if there is a limit to how many levels you can. I would think it's at
99.
Of the, okay.
99 levels, okay. But so I have never encountered a customer that wanted 99
That's
levels.
A lot of levels. You have to have a high block.
And you have to have a really high block, and you know the micrometer in between the level has to be
very small.
Very small. Yeah. But you can do it. But again, as we're talking, the levels and the sections is actually placed on individual slides.
Yes.
But what we're seeing more and more is the tendency that they can actually do less sections due to the quality of the So we are seeing more protocols in Denmark where they're actually reducing the amount of sections.
We have done that too, actually, to get even more on it, because the quality is so good. So we, in a perfect world, everything would run on it, but there will be some types of specimens where we can remove every level that the pathologist will have, but we have tried to have that. And sometimes I have a pathologist saying, "Can I get this on the machine? It's cut so beautiful." And I'm like, "Yeah, if you remove all levels and only have one levels on it." So
unless you're open to the idea of having levels on multiple.
Exactly, but then it's mostly because of the scanning, and again, you will use more slides than.
Next question, please. What is the longest time a machine has been down while needed service?
Oh, I can see for us, I think the longest time is around a week, but it was something with a part that should be shipped over from Japan, and you didn't have it on storage. And of course, I think it's the only time it has been so long. For the most part, when there is service, it will be a half to a whole day where there is a technician on the machine to check out.
And I would say with the increasing install base, it also put a pressure on which spare parts we actually do have in stock. So we are gearing more up, because with the install base we're having, we are trying to accommodate everybody.
Every part, yeah.
Next question. Do you know when the system will be allowed to, will be allowed to use in the US?
I think that's for you.
So I think it actually is been approved to be used in the United States. We just have customer actually visiting you yesterday, and they're looking into buy this year, by the end of this year or start next year. So the FDA approval is something we have been pending on for a long time, but to my knowledge, it is actually approved, so we could go live in the US, and we're looking forward to it, because that is a market where we think there is some really interesting customers. Because let's say in Europe we are only doing one shift, maximum two, but that's a long stretch. But go to the United States where you have 3 shifts operating 24 hours. This will be a journey.
Yeah, and of course, the longer hours you work, the more output will increase in that, because we are only working 1 shift here. If you work 3 shifts, you can run it all through the day with no breaks.
But I will say
if it has to have a break.
But I will say to all of you in the United States, we will be at the convention at NSH. So please do come behind our booth in September. It will be great to see you all. Do we have more questions? Can you clarify the 30% not processed on YAs? You mentioned problems with fatty and hard tissue.
Yeah, for the most part, the 30% for us is because it's biopsies that needs more than 1 level. So just because of that, it goes for manual cutting. So that's the main reason. Of course, there will be some hard tissue, something that we try on it, and then we'll go out for manually afterwards, because of the AS couldn't do it. But the main part of 30% is biopsies that needs more than 1 level.
So it's not so much depending on if it's fatty or hard tissue. No. It's mostly because of your biopsies and the fact that sometimes the decalcification is not to its best.
Exactly.
And in that case, you will have a manual go on.
Yeah. Or if we have it depends on what kind of slides there is on that type of tissue, because we have a lot of tissue where we have many immunostains or something like that. And that's easier for now to do manually for us.
We have a question. Were you able to show a saving in personal hiring? For instance, were you able to attrit open positions since implementing the embedding? Or sorry,
yeah, I will say we have the same staff as we did back then. Actually, maybe a little more, because at that time when we were implementing the first one, we were lack of staff, and right now actually think we are where we should be for the first time in many years. So no, we hadn't getting rid of any technologist or something like that, because mainly I think in Denmark especially we are relocating the task for for the technologists. So instead of doing the manual sectioning for like 10 years ago, there was a lot of hands to do the manual sectioning, but today there is so many other tasks that is landing with the technologist that we didn't have 10 years ago. And as an example, with us, it will be the scanning. It's a technologist who is doing the scanning. So we are just doing other tasks than doing the manual sectioning.
Yeah, I think what most people that hasn't encountered this will think that now you're having installed these, now we can leave up work for so and so people, but it's also it creates a power flow, but that power flow needs to be supervised to some extent because of changing consumables, doing loading, unloading, and we talked a lot about this lab tech being hyper focused on quality, quality assessment. How do you select your blocks before they're going into the system? How reviewing the output quality, and that had created a new role within pathology that we might not have seen before. Maybe we saw a little in relation to digital, but now it's more clear that we need these very tuned, focused quality persons.
I think you're right there, and especially for us, it has really been an eye opener to see the quality above all, and I think our improvement in quality is just a big factor in all that, because like example for 10 years ago, I think we had 10, 15 technologists doing the manual cutting. If I have a good day in my laboratory, I will have 6 or 7 to do the manual cutting. So it's again, the task has changed.
And maybe more so even for the future.
I think so.
Based on your numbers for 2023, the 2 instruments are handling about 580 blocks per day, but is it with instrument overnight and weekends as well?
It's with instrument overnight, but without the weekend. And for 2024, we started working in weekend also, so I will have an idea about that it will be increased again this year. So it's for the day run and the night run per day.
Does the instrument automatically reject suboptimal sections, or does it place every section on its side?
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that.
So if, let's say, we have required a block with 10 sections, so what it would do 10 sections, and then of course it will flag if there is artifact not mounted section. That is actually something the blade mark is geared to do, and we can fine tune it in. There is currently a new feature called the retry, and that retry function will actually do so if it hits a blade mark, flags it as a red, it could go in and do a retry of that specific section. So that is something that it could do. We have also been talking about that could be a good feature to do it on the night run.
Yes,
because then it could snap up maybe easily. And not mounted sections could be
especially in not mounted sections. It's because the blade mark is very sensitive, and that's a good thing because it's the reason we can get those high quality slides. But when we tried it, we saw that many of the slides were exactly the same if it was just a blade mark. But if it's not mounted, then we had a second chance to get that slides. Yeah.
So of course it depends on how geared and tuned in the blade mark is knowledge to all the life that you try. Next question, please. What happens if the tissue pops out of the block? How often does it happen?
It does happen, I will say, but of course, again, it will depend on how you is embedding it and what kind of tissue it is. I will say, and I think that's high, maximum 1 a month, something like that. And it's most often some hard tissues that is the problem that is manually embedded. I don't think I have ever seen it with something that is automated embedded, actually. So it's not very often. And for the most part, you can actually find the tissue inside the instrument. And when it happens so rarely, we are not worried about it's a different tissue or something like that. If we find it right away, we will just re-embed it and then do it manually.
So when you're saying manually embedded, I'm just thinking maybe it's because, you know, the process of doing manuals is actually, you know, the paraffin has hardened and then you have added on more and then it might, you know, in that case fall off. There's not even embedding techniques. What I would say is, again, is also referring back to the parameter setting. So if we have hard tissue, what we're seeing more and more, we try to accommodate their cut speed because we know a cut force will minimize that jumping out of
and again, that will be a good reason to do that setup of multiple protocols for different specimens.
Yeah. Next question. What's the lowest and highest setting for tissue thickness? So the lowest we go is 3 and the highest is 10. And then the lowest might seem high on 3, especially for European. I'm not sure how it is in the US. I hear 3 and 4 is actually the norm. But it is a converting table. So if we took a manual microtome and set it to 2, 1.5, depending on what we would like to section, it's a matter of how long could you have that section throughout all your sections. And with the AS, that is actually more accurate. So if you're thinking your section 1.5, 2, it might be even higher. And this is what we're seeing. The average of the thickness from manual is actually higher than what the set count is. And this is a touchy one because but this is just what we have been seeing then.
And I can actually say in our facility, we are cutting manually around 1.5, 2 on each slice, but on the instrument we are cutting on 5. Yes, so there is this difference, and it looks like the same sometimes. Yeah, and for the most time, actually, the manually section look like it's more thick than the automatic. So yeah, so you can.
It's inconvenient.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question, please. How many technologies are you currently, employing with 1,200 blocks per day?
Currently, we have 50 technologists in the histology lab. And again, as I said before, it's not very many of them that is actually sectioning of logs. And when I said 50 is high, it's the norm that we are, if it's a good day, we have like 40 in work because there will always be vacation, maternity leave, or something like that. So on a good day, we will be 40 on work.
40.
Yeah. And it's a very good day. It's a very, very good day.
Okay. Do you have a question more? Is there any conditions with slide scanning manufacturers so that the slide trays used to collect slides at the end could be used as a loading slide tray at the beginning of the slide scanner, eliminating needed to okay, I think I know what you're meaning. So it's actually a transfer. So taking from the collection box out to the staining and then having the same trays to going inside a scanner. And in the perfect world, that would be the greatest solution because then we have minimum handling. But again, at least for the Danish market, you are operating with so many different platforms and so many different scanning. So that will be hard to accommodate that. We are looking into a future where we want to automate solution pre and post sectioning. So we might see where this goes, but currently we do not have any solution for that handling of the slides.
Yeah, and it's a topic who is interesting because there is talking so much about robotic, and I know this is robotic, but maybe it's something in between there to load from one tray to another tray or rack or whatever thing you are using.
We will see what the future bring us. So thank you for all the questions. I just want to have your attention for a short moment. I just want to say that we will end this sequence of 3 webinars with the latest one in September the 4th, and this will be a business case webinar. So we will be talking a lot about how we financialize purchase of the system and how we are making a perfect business case for such a system. So I will just be thanking you all for now. Thank you for tuning in and hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.